going to the BK Sport? We're going to talk about the Melbourne Storm today. We've been talking about a few teams so far. I think we've done the Sharkies, we've done the Eels, we've done the Raiders, we've done we've kind of done my Gold Coast Titans actually. We haven't really done a video about the team per se, more about kind of the organisation, kind of what's going on there. So we've still got a video to come about them. But yeah, look, we've done a whole heap of teams and we've still got quite a few teams to go. So obviously we've been posting every single day, guys. So hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new around here. If you love your rugby league content, this is the place to be. But like I said, today we're going to be talking about the Melbourne Storm, and if they can keep going is what I'll say, because every single year, and this has been every single year for like 15 years, like honestly, for the last 10, 15 years, every year someone says, "Ooh, I think this is the year the Storm fall off. Oh, this is the year I think the Storm's going to go and drop down a little bit." And then obviously Billy Slater, when people were like, oh, when the big three kind of go, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk and Cameron Smith, Billy Slater left and they're like, oh, here we go. Didn't happen. Then Cooper Cronk went to the Roosters. Oh, maybe. Did not happen. And then when Cameron Smith retired, they were like, this is the one. This is the one. But it didn't happen, right? And now, which is what I've been saying for a long time, everyone's on the kind of, if Craig Bellamy goes, when Craig Bellamy goes, that's when the Storm will fall apart. But the history of the Melbourne Storm kind of proves that regardless, that's going to be different, right? And you're probably going to see the Storm continue. But right at this very second, if I can see a way the Storm do fall off completely, it would be once Craig Bellamy goes. But again, that's not a guarantee because they are built from the inside out really, really strong. However, I will say, and that's what the point of this video is today, do they go on with it in 2024 and do they compete at a very high level, which is what the organisation and the club has stood for such a long time. You know, they've been a very successful team, very controversially successful as well, obviously the late 2000s and whatnot. And we did our coaches team maker, and I did have a comment there that basically said, oh, we spoke about Shane Flanagan and the peptide scandal at Cronulla quite a lot, but we didn't really talk too much about Craig Bellamy and the salary cap scandal. And look, I've said for a long time, I do believe that the Storm success that we've seen in the last 14 odd years has been built off of the foundation of that cheating. So I do maintain that and do say that. However, they did still compete at a very high level before that as well, I will say. So, you know, the Storm are a very controversial team, polarizing team, where you can kind of say, yeah, look, they've been unbelievably successful and they just know how to work it. They know what to do. And then there's the other side where you're like, okay, well, the foundations of their recent success has come off the back of that cheating, and they were able to get players and kind of put them into the right standing point based off of that. There is those two sides. But at the end of the day, guys, you do have to respect the fact that they can continuously be in the top four, continuously be competing, and continuously have everyone talking about them potentially falling off. Because that means, guess what? They're right up the top. They're in the top little echelon there, right? So, but today, obviously 2024, people are confused. And I think they're rightfully so confused. Now, last year, I did potentially see them hitting 9th. I did think before the season, in hindsight, obviously that was awful, but before the season, I did think that outside of their spine, they're in a bit of a struggle situation, I would say. You know, their spine is unbelievable. Their spine is absolutely electric. You got Ryan Papenhuyzen, little Buppy, or potentially even Su'Falongo, who is just an unbelievable star coming through. The Storm always know how to get fullbacks. You know, it was Billy Slater, it was Cameron Munster, I think Robbie Ross as well. Robbie Ross back in the day, like he was a damn well phenomenal player as the fullback. You've had Nico Hines come through as well. The Storm always deliver great fullback products. So they've got a great fullback core there. They've got the 6th Cameron Munster, who needs to get back to the elite level that we know he is. He is the best 5'8", when he wants to be the 5'8". The 7 Jerome Hughes, also very similar. I do think that he's dropped off a little bit in the last year or so, last year or two even, realistically. But I do think that Jerome Hughes can get back up there. And then the number 9, obviously Harry Grant, best hooker in the game. Right, so their spine is unbelievable and should win them games simply based off of that, right? Simply based off of that. Now, I had their predicted lineup here. Okay, let's go through their predicted lineup for this year, because outside of that spine is the concern. So, fullback, little Buppy, Ryan Papenhuyzen, with the wingers being Xavier Coates and Will Warbrick. Will Warbrick, I predicted as the breakout player for the Melbourne Storm last year. Very happy with that one. Knew he was great for the New Zealand Sevens, and then it's obviously translated really well to rugby league. I think that the wingers are probably one of the least of concerns at the Melbourne Storm outside of the spine. I think Xavier Coates, we've seen him play Origin before. Great player, man. Just hasn't really come on to what we expected from the Melbourne Storm. I think everyone was so excited. I remember myself, Guru, Kempy, you know, a whole bunch of people, the Roasty, Clarkey, everyone was saying, Xavier Coates is going to be such a big time player at the Storm. And I don't think it's necessarily... It's not worked out, but it hasn't gotten to the heights that I believe everyone thought was possible there with Xavier Coates. And I don't think that it's out of the equation that he could get to those heights, but I don't think we've seen it just yet at the Melbourne Storm. And yes, there's been an injury or two here and there, but overall hasn't reached that height just yet. But the wingers, I've got no real problem with. I've got no real problem with at all. I think that those wingers are great. You go into the centres though, you've got Nick Meaney and Remus Smith. I think this is a bit of a do-the-job kind of section here for the Storm. I think that they will get the job done, but I don't think they're unbelievable. I do think Remus Smith is relatively underrated. Obviously, Nick Meaney's been their fullback for the last year or so with the Pappenhausen injury. Nothing lights the world on fire there in the centres. But again, I don't think they're going to do a bad job, right? So maybe it's an underrated centre pairing. Maybe. With that being said, at the time being, it doesn't really light the world on fire there in the centres. You go into the halves, Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. There's nothing really to say about them besides the fact that they are elite on their day, and they are elite caliber players. Munster, more so than Jerome Hughes, has proven it, more so in my personal opinion. But I do think that both of these guys in Jerome Hughes and Munster admitted this recently actually, he's not been at his best, and I think that both of these guys need to kind of get back to it, right? And really show that they are the elite caliber halves pairing that puts them into the top two spines in the competition, right? Because the spine is really going to directly relate from what the 6 and the 7 can produce. So these two guys on paper, two of the best in the game. Don't know if they've been at their best recently though, which I'm looking forward to seeing them really stand up in 2024. You got your front rowers of Tui Kamikamica and Christian Welsh. Think this is a bit of a worry. Not the biggest worry, but I think this is the biggest one of the biggest worries of the team. Solid players. Tui Kamikamica obviously plays Fiji, very solid player. And then Christian Welsh has been Origin caliber before, Origin level before. But I do think that post his injury, I think it was an ACL injury if I'm not mistaken. It was a long-term injury. He came back. And I do think he's just been kind of doing his job, right? So it's nothing. The forwards of the Melbourne Storm right now aren't necessarily getting it going for me at all. But it's still solid enough where they're two rep caliber players that should still be able to get some good meter eater kind of play, right? I don't know. I was trying to say, I don't know what I'm saying to be fair, but what I'm saying is that they can eat some meters, right? And they do know how to really chug along up the middle of the field. But I just think that there are much better front row forward pairings across the competition that they're going to really find it tough against. You go into the number 9, Harry Grant. We all know there's nothing that even needs to be said here. He's the best hooker in the game. Won the Dalian Hooker of the Year. Tigers, when he played there for a lone player, when he was a lone player, got a standing ovation at the end of the season. And they didn't even finish top 8. I think they finished 10th. I'm pretty certain they finished 10th in 2020. So he got a standing ovation when he was at a club as a lone player. That's absolutely outstanding. Outstanding. I know that's been 4 years, 3-4 years in between then and now. But at the end of the day, he's gotten even better, right? So Harry Grant, there's no worries there at all. Here is the biggest issue of the Melbourne Storm. The 11, 12, and 13. You've got Trent Loiero, you've got Eliesa Katoa, and the 13, you've got Josh King. Now, I like Eliesa Katoa. I would love to see Sean Bloor get into that 11. However, I do know that Craig Bellamy, who I trust over myself, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's got the experience. You got to respect the experience. You got to respect the success that he's built for himself there with the Melbourne Storm. Again, people are saying once Craig Bellamy, like I would agree, once Craig Bellamy leaves, you'll start to see the downfall of the Storm. Trent Loiero is a guy that I believe the Storm really bank in and back in really, really hard. Personally, for me, I don't see it, and I don't think many people do see it. However, I would be more inclined to believe the organisation in this sense, but there is massive question marks about this 11 and 12. Eliesa was fine last year. He does have a lot of X factor, but I don't think it's consistent. I don't think it's consistent. And, you know, if you're not playing at a consistent level and you've got a spine of Harry Grant, Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Little Manu Labupi / Suafat Longo to work with, there might be a bit of an issue there. But with that being said, I do like the way that Eliesa Katoa does run off Jerome Hughes. I do see some really nice holes there. I'm really liking what Eliesa Katoa can produce, but we need to see the consistent level in 2024. Trent Loiero, not convinced on. Not even convinced on Sean Bloor, to be completely honest with you. Just not convinced on the back row pairing here for the Storm overall, which, again, does fall in line with the front rowers, where the front row and the back row right now, there's just something missing for me. There's just something missing in this forward pack when you've got teams like the Parramatta Eels, you've got teams like the Broncos, even though they've lost forward pack in Kurt Capewell and Tom Flegler, there's still a quality forward pack there in Paddy Carrigan, Payne Haas, Who else is there? Jordan Ricky. You know, those guys are solid. Then you got the Titans with Tino, Mo, Bo Firma, Dave Fafita. You know, that kind of Cal Palacia coming in. You got the Panthers, Fisher Harris, Moses Leota, Liam Martin, Isaiah Yo. I just think that this 8, 10, 11, 12, and then we'll get to 13 in a second, is really, I would say, disappointing as a collective comparatively to the other forward packs, which is where I think the Storm might struggle this year. They're not necessarily going to struggle in the backs, but the forwards, they may struggle. The 13 is Josh King. Fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say that Josh King does what he needs to do. You're not going to get any X factor from him. I don't think that he's who I would personally go with if I was the coach of the Melbourne Storm. But with that being said, you don't need an X factor in every single position. Right, when you've got guys like Munster, you've got guys like Hughes, you've got Harry Grant, you've got Little Mullet Man, you've got even Will Warbrick, Xavier Coates, Elias Katoa. They've got a great deal and a plethora of X-Factor options. So I don't think that Josh King is the worst option because you don't want too many X-Factors that are really just trying to be that big old spark. I think Josh King does his job fine. But with that being said, it does really roll into that collective where the 8, 10, 11, 12, and 13, as a collective again, may struggle to get over the top of some forward packs in this season. Their bench, this is the predicted lineup from NRL.com, by the way. They've got Nelson Asafa-Solomona, Alec McDonald, Aaron Penne, and Suafa-Alongo. I don't know if Suafa-Alongo will be that 14. If he is, cool. Be interesting to see. I do think that he's more of a slow burner for Craig Bellamy, and I think he's willing to kind of weigh it out. But with that being said, touch wood, Ryan Pappenhausen with Mullen Puppy is fine and doesn't go down an injury road again, which we have seen a couple of times now. Otherwise, Suafa-Alongo will go straight in. But touch wood, Ryan Pappenhausen is fine. And we do see what we know he can produce, but I hope that he can come back to his best as well, because we do see when players come out of long-term injuries, especially in the backs, you know, I think I'm always going to be affected by the Kevin Gordon injury for the Gold Coast Titans back in 2011-12. It was actually in Melbourne, actually, at AAMI Park. I was there, and Kevin G was, you know, the speedster back then. He was one of the fastest players in the comp. It was David Mead, Kevin Gordon, great wing pairing. We went down to Melbourne, I think it was round 2, and Kevin G, I think he did his ACL and never came back from it. There was one game at Seabus where he broke away and we all thought, oh, he would go, we've won the game because it was like the 78th minute, and he just didn't get the speed going. And I really hope that Little Puppy does trust himself. He got a game or two last year at the back end, but nothing where we've been able to see it at a consistent level yet. So I just want to wait and see on Little Mullen and Buppy. Potentially Fa'alongo comes in. They don't really miss a great deal because they are similar-ish players, and Fa'alongo has such an unbelievable amount of talent. And in regards to the bench, not a massive fan of Alec McDonald. I think Aaron Penne has potential but hasn't lived up to it at all just yet. But Nelson Asafa-Solomona is one of the best front rowers in the competition, but doesn't have the massive engine on him. You know, doesn't have the massive longevity on him. Like, he'll come in, make a huge impact in 20 minutes. He'll make a huge impact, but then could get suspended, could get in a punch on, or will come out, you know, of the game because he's tired, because he's had such an impact. So, look, when you go through that team list there, I think that they're definitely still a top 8 team, for sure. They definitely are still a top 8 team. And there is the potential there to still be a top 4 team if the forwards can just kind of get a little bit more going out of them and really kind of get a good chug up the field where people don't really believe that. But to go over their ladder positioning of the last couple of years where people are really thinking they're going to miss the 8 this year, 2023, they came 3rd position, right? Equal with the Warriors, but had a better points differential of 168 compared to the Warriors 124. And there were 3 points above the Knights there, who did actually have a better points differential than them, right? So the Storm did come 3rd. Obviously, we all know what happened to them when they played the Bronx. They did still get to the preliminary final against the Panthers, but got absolutely trounced in that game and were lucky to even beat the Roosters, actually. They had to rely on a last-minute winner, I think it was, against the Chooksters down there at AAMI. So not a convincing season, but they still got 3rd, and that's the point. That's what I mean about this Storm organisation. They know how to get it done. 2022, they did come 5th, which was their lowest season. Their lowest season in recent memory, man. They came 5th there, which was equal to the Roosters in 6th, but they had a 247 points differential, so much better than what they had last year, and yet they were 2 spots lower. Right, so that tells you that last year wasn't actually as competitive of a year as it was in 2022. It wasn't as competitive as a year. Then you'll go and look at 2021, where they obviously lost to... No, they didn't go to the grand final. Sorry, that was the Rabbitohs year. But they did come 1st. They came 1st, equal with the Panthers. They had a plus 499 points differential. They scored 815 points, which is 140 more than what the Panthers scored in 2nd. That's crazy. The Rabbitohs and Manly both scored more points than the Panthers, but the Panthers finished on higher, like, in regards to... Oh, well, to be fair, Manly scored a lot. That was the Tom Trbojevic year. Manly scored 744 points, the Rabbitohs scored 775 points, and the Storm scored 815 points, while the Panthers scored 676. So that was a crazy year for attack, man. That was a crazy year for attack. And again, the Storm finished first. You go back to 2020, the year they did beat the Panthers in the grand final. Funnily enough, they were second. Panthers were first. Finished first, but the Storm obviously beat the Panthers in that grand final by 6 points. It was actually quite close in the end, but it was a blowout for the majority of the game. And they actually finished 5 points below the Panthers. Panthers finished on 37 points with a differential of 299, whilst the Storm had 258. So again, Storm have... The only time they finished out of the top 4 in the last 5 years was 2 years ago. They finished 5th. I'm pretty certain they still made the preliminary final. And then you go back to 2019, and they finished 6 points clear of the Roosters. And the Roosters actually ended up winning that competition that year. And they had a plus 331 points differential. So the Storm, everyone doesn't believe in them. And I can see it with their forward pack, and I can see it in the positions outside of the spine. But I just don't think it warrants people thinking that this team shouldn't be making the 8. I think that you've got a top 2 spine. And I would argue that it could, as a collective, be a better spine than Dylan Edwards, Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary, and Mitch Kenny. Right? Because at the end of the day, Cameron Munster can be elite, Nathan Cleary is elite, Jerome Hughes can be elite, Jerome Luai can be elite, Harry Grant is elite, Mitch Kenny is serviceable, and then you've got Ryan Pappenhausen versus Dylan Edwards, who can both be elite, right? I would say that Mitch Kenny is the only one there that you can kind of maybe say the Panthers are below the Storm, but it is arguable, right? So overall, I think that people are underestimating the Storm, but I don't think they can win the competition. I'm sorry, Storm fans. I don't think you can win the competition with this team. But I do think, again, you're going to win enough games to make the top 8. I wouldn't be surprised if you're in the top 4. This could be Craig Bellamy's last year. I'm not too sure. At the end of the day, I do think you have a solid enough team here to get what you need to do done. And I do think that you'll get enough points. There is enough talent here. There is just needed more stuff out of the front rowers and out of the back rowers and the lock. But you've got the help there in Harry Grant, Jerome Hughes, Munster, and Pappenhausen. And that back line's okay. The wingers are solid. The centers are okay, maybe underrated, but I think they're probably just a little bit under what you would kind of want there in centers. But it's going to be an interesting year for the Storm, because this is probably, I would say, if you were to make the argument the Storm were going to drop off, this probably would be the best year in the last 15 years to say that. But I just think you're maybe 1-2 years too early. I think you're maybe 1-2 years too early. You have to wait for Craig Bellamy to go, and then this team will change drastically, in my personal opinion. But it'll be interesting, man. It will be interesting. So that's my thoughts here on today's video. Obviously, I'll do a full actual ladder prediction the week of the first games. But for the time being, guys, hit that like button. Subscribe if you are new around here. Tomorrow's a charity match, baby. I hope to see you there. If not, jump in the description. Get your link for the game where I'll be commentating alongside Clarkie's Rugby League column and Jake Cairns. It's only $5. Goes to charity. May as well. It's going to be a great day down there at Leakham Oval. But I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See you.